This is Annie of ByAnnie.com and Patterns by Annie. Thank you so much for joining us today for Live with Annie. As usual, we've started the stream a bit early. This helps us get everything set up and broadcasting properly to our various platforms. You can find a countdown clock on the screen showing how long it will be until we actually go live. While you wait, please connect with us and other viewers in the chat. Let us know where you are from and whether you're a new or longtime viewer. We'll see you live soon! Thanks again for joining us for Live with Annie. We are so happy to have you with us today. While you wait for the program to start, we hope you'll enjoy the content playing on screen. There's so much inspiration, so take a moment to tell us what you love in the chat. Don't forget there is a countdown clock on the screen so you know how long until we go live. again, reminding you that we'll be going live with this week's episode shortly. There is a countdown clock on the screen showing how much time is left. You've got just enough time to grab some water or a beverage of your choice and a snack, and to connect with us in the chat. We'd love to hear what you've been working on this week. It's Annie, back to remind you that we'll be starting this week's live very shortly. We've got a really fun episode planned for today, and we'll see you soon. Hi, I'm Annie of ByAnnie.com and Patterns by Annie. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 9 of season 5 of Live with Annie. Today we are going to be joined by the incredibly talented Amy Latta of Amy Latta Creations. Amy is an artist, author, lettering expert, teacher, TV personality, and maker of all things beautiful. I am so excited to talk to her about her creations, including her brand new fabric line, Bloom and Sew, from Andover Fabrics. Along the way, we'll talk about lots of ByAnnie projects, including a really special caddy we made to spread awareness of sarcoma and bone cancer, so stay tuned. It is always great to see so many of you here. We know there are lots and lots of things you could be doing with this time, and we always really appreciate it when you make the time to be with us, even if you're catching us on the replay. We would really love it if you would take a moment to follow us wherever you are watching, and if you know someone else who you think might enjoy the information that we share, we would really be grateful if you would tell them about Live with Annie too. Just tag them while you're watching, as that will take them directly to the episode and they can watch it too. Also, we love reading your comments, so be sure to interact with us throughout this presentation. We want to know what you think, and we love learning from you too. If you have any questions, just add them in the comments or chat, and we will do our best to answer them before we close. In our last episode, we showcased the 5 new patterns that we released this spring. These include patterns for everyone from beginners to advanced makers, featuring projects that can be made in as little as an hour to more involved weekend projects. These fun and useful patterns are sure to jumpstart your creativity, so if you missed that episode, or if you want to watch it again, remember that you can find all the previous 191 episodes of Live with Annie on our YouTube channel or at ByAnnie.com live. The episodes will also be available on our Facebook page, but due to policy changes at Meta, they will only be there for 30 days. And when Facebook deletes the older streams, they also delete the comments, which is really a bummer. So right now, YouTube is the very best place to show all the conversation generated, so please consider joining us for Live with Annie there. And we've put up all the links to make them easy for you to find. Time for water. So again, as I said, today I'm really thrilled to be joined by Amy Latta of Amy Latta Creations. Amy stopped by our booth at Market in Houston last year to introduce herself, and I was so excited to hear about her new fabric line and her background in art and lettering. One of my favorite classes in college was a calligraphy class that I took on a whim. In that class, we used special pens and ink, and though it was really fun, I really haven't done anything with it for years. So I was really excited to see the new tools and easy techniques that Amy shares in her books and videos on modern calligraphy. I can't wait to learn more about all of it and thought that you would all enjoy listening in too. So please help me welcome Amy Latta to Live with Annie.
Hi, Annie.
Thank you so much for being here. I am really, really excited to talk to you today. Before we dive deep into Bloom and Sew, I would love for our audience to get to know a bit about you. You are someone who wears many, many creative hats, from author to author, artist to author to blogger to TV personality, and now fabric designer. So let's go back a little bit. Where did your love of creativity begin?
Honestly, I don't think there's ever been a time I can remember when I didn't love creating. I was the kid who was always doodling on the sides of my notebook during class. And my mom is really crafty and creative as well. In fact, she and my dad had a little craft business where they would go and set up at local craft shows on the weekends. And so she taught me everything she knows. And from an early age, I was sewing, I was painting, I was helping her create all kinds of little home decor things that folks would buy. And, I think I was in 4-H and I would make things for the fair. And I think I just never stopped loving it. So as I got to be an adult, I continued. And then when my first son, Noah, was born, we just started crafting together and the cycle continued.
Ah, that's so awesome. That love of crafting really shows in what you do, and that love of, having a family that's involved in it too. You really have such a signature look, which is soft and positive and really full of heart. Did you have any formal training in art or design?
Actually, no, surprisingly. I went to college to be an English teacher and I taught in the public school system for 2 years. And then I was a ballroom Latin and swing dance instructor for a few
Wow.
years, which was so much fun. And then my first son was born, and I really just wanted nothing more than to be able to be home with him as he was growing up. And so I stopped working outside the home, but then, I just needed something that would help me to have some me time and also to connect with other grown-ups out there in the world. So I started a little craft blog where I was documenting some of the craft projects that we were doing together, some mommy and me type things. And it all just kind of snowballed from there. But I'm completely self-taught when it comes to art and design. And of course, my mom taught me to sew.
Wow, that's really amazing. And that's really a good reminder for our viewers that you don't have to have formal training to be an artist. It's really about practice and passion, I think. So, how did you
Exactly.
transition from teaching high school into being that full time creative?
Well, honestly, Annie, I think good teaching is good teaching. So I definitely brought those skills with me. Everything that I learned about how to teach high school kids, I just use that when I teach now in various forms. But I guess what really happened was when I had that first sort of mommy and me blog, it was around the time when advertisers were starting to realize that bloggers had captive audiences who were interested in certain things. And so the folks who create the craft supplies that you buy at Walmart reached out to me and they said, "Hey, we know that you have this group of moms who are coming to your website to get ideas. What if we sent you some free craft supplies and you made things with them and then people would be inspired to buy our products and do your projects?" And I was like, "Sign me up." Like, free craft supplies? Yes, please. And so over time, I continued to make brand partnerships. And of course, my son has grown up. He's about to go to college on August the 10th. I'm brokenhearted. He's leaving me. But I had to make the shift to more grown up home decor projects and things. And of course, the hand lettering that we're going to talk about in a bit. And it was all sort of a gradual thing where I got the sponsorships and then eventually the book deals. And before I knew it, I was making a living doing this when it was really just a hobby to start.
Wow, that is really exciting to hear, and what a wonderful evolution. I also really like hearing how your journey has always centered around sharing with others, teaching other people, encouraging them to try new things. Has that always been part of your mission?
Absolutely. Years and years ago, when I was first married, we went on vacation with my in laws. And my mother in law, at the time, I was a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and I was making the rubber stamped cards and things. And she just desperately wanted to do it, but felt like she was not artistic. And so I sat down with her and walked her through making a birthday card for my father in law. And just watching her face as she realized, I can do this. I might not be able to draw someone's portrait, but this I can do, and I can make something and gift it and enjoy it. And it just was transformative for me. And so now, still, everywhere that I teach, there are always people who come up and say, I can't. I'm not good at this. I don't. And I just want them to reframe that immediately because we all can create beautiful things.
Oh boy, I so agree. And that's something we really believe in here at ByAnnie too, that if you help people achieve success through making, they can do anything. One of my favorite sayings is, if you think you can, you can't. Or not that. If you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, you can't. So,
That's so true.
having the mindset that, yes, I can do this, takes away a whole lot of roadblocks that you put in front of yourself. And I have to remind myself of that regularly. My husband was a Renaissance man, I always say. And I mean, I was building houses and putting in roads and bridges, things that I never in my life thought I'd do. And because he needed my help and stuff, I learned to do a lot of those things. I'm not sure I could still do them or would even want to still do them, but we're capable of a lot more than we really think. So let's
Yes, and
segue a
I
little.
love
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I love to tell people practice makes progress, because I think we get so caught up in that idea that we have to be perfect. And honestly, no one is ever going to be perfect. So if we can let go of that and just remember, okay, if I practice this, next time is going to be better than the time before. And I'm going to grow and I'm going to improve and I'm going to change. I think sometimes just getting people to let go of that idea that they immediately have to be Picasso, or they have to, sew a bag like yours, the ones that you made. It has to look just like yours, or their lettering has to look just like mine. And it doesn't. It has to be yours. And it's the growth that you have as you practice and continue to learn, not that first finished product.
That's exactly it. When people say, "Oh, I can't do bindings," or "Oh, I hate bindings," it's like, I didn't learn to bind like that in a day. But with a little bit of
No.
practice, my binding has gotten better and better and better. And now I don't even, binding's nothing to me. It's like, I love the bones that it gives a structure or a project, and the structure that it gives, the nice finish that it gives. And you can do it too. So let's move a little bit to talk about your hand lettering, because that is really a big part of your brand and your voice. So how did you get started with that?
That's a great question. Back in, I think it was about 2015, 16, hand lettering or modern calligraphy really kind of burst onto the scene everywhere, because I think what happens sometimes in the art community is that when we feel like we're going to lose something, we want to hold on to it more tightly. For example, you know how when we were in school, everywhere you looked, there was a blackboard. Well, when they took all the blackboards out and replaced them with whiteboards, people went, oh no, you can't take away our chalkboards. So what did we do? We put them in our homes. We started making home decor with them. And I think the same thing happened with lettering. I know my kids didn't learn cursive in school, and they're just not teaching those skills anymore. Everything is done by graphic design, by computer. And so people in the art world were kind of afraid that we were going to lose the art of handwriting. So modern calligraphy was sort of an attempt to stop that from happening and to save something. And so you mentioned that in college you had used like the pointed nib pens and the special things. So modern calligraphy is using brush pens, where it's kind of the brush, or rather the tip of the marker acts like a paintbrush, where if you add pressure, it gets thicker, and if you release pressure, it's thinner. So you can control the lines based on the pressure, not so much the angle that you're holding it at, if that makes sense. But basically, it started to be everywhere on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook. Everything I looked at had this gorgeous brush script. And I thought, I want to learn how to do that. I've always loved bubble letters and different fonts and playing around with my handwriting and my notes and stuff. So I just started looking at everything that I could, going to every website that I could find and everything where people were trying to teach how to do it, and kind of taught myself how. And as I was learning, I was sharing it with my audience, and they wanted it. They wanted it too. So everything that I put out there, they were just eating it up and begging for more, which is how I ended up getting my first book deal.
So what was the name of your first book?
That one is called Hand Lettering for Relaxation. And I think that that's actually a great title, because it's so mindful and it's such a great thing to do for relaxing and unwinding and just taking some me time.
I actually bought that book. I haven't sat down and practiced with it yet, but it has such a calming and very approachable guide that I'm looking forward. And what I love about it is each chapter focuses on a different letter or a different style. So by the time you're through the whole thing, you know how to do the whole alphabet. But then you also have little projects that you can do, and even pages within the book to practice. You know, you've got a border and you can practice to do them. So I figure this summer, when I get caught up with new patterns that have to be done within the next few weeks. That's going to be my summer relaxation in the evenings. I'm going to sit down and do some signs. But your lettering style is really warm and expressive, and it really goes well with the designs in your fabric line. So I'm curious, were you thinking about lettering as part of the fabric from the very beginning?
Initially, for this particular first collection, I wasn't thinking of it as being one of the fabrics, but I knew that it had to be in there somewhere because that's so much a part of who I am and what I do and the things that I teach. And so what I did was I actually created a panel, and Andover, they they weren't sure at first exactly what I wanted to do, and they went along with me, which I love them for, and let me create this panel where you can see some of it here, and I think you have an image that you can pop up of the panel itself. But basically, it has some different projects on there that are designed. There's 2 pillow fronts, the square ones. There's 6 little pouches, and then there's a table runner. And I was able to incorporate my hand lettering into the panel by lettering some fun little phrases about sewing, like "I'd rather be sewing," which of course we would, "material girl," things like that. So much fabric, so little time. And so I was able to combine my illustrations and patterns with my lettering, which was really fun.
Yeah, and you really did a great job on that. I had a whole lot of fun playing with parts of that and using it for different parts of the bags. We'll talk about more about those in a few minutes, but I'm curious to know, how did you get associated with Andover? How did that come about? Did you approach them or did they find you?
No, I actually approached them. And so I was at a quilting event, and they were one of the vendors that were set up. And I loved their fabric and have worked with their fabric for all kinds of projects and things. And it's always sort of been a bucket list thing for me that I wanted to create fabric. Even before I was really quilting, I still, like I said, was sewing. And just the idea of combining my doodles and letters with fabric, it was something I always wanted to do. And you know how sometimes you'll go to the fabric store and you have in mind, like, I want this certain fabric and it doesn't exist. I was like, I need to make it exist. But I just had to get somebody to agree to make the fabric and work with me. So I thought Andover would be a really great fit. And I reached out to them, and initially I just sent them some sort of one-off drawings to show them the kind of style that I have. And they were interested, but they couldn't necessarily see it as fabric yet. So I was like, well, I'm not going to take that as a no. I'm going to take that as an I have work to do. So I went online and I signed myself up for a surface pattern class. And I learned how to turn my doodles and drawings into surface patterns. So I did this challenge for the class where you started with a hero illustration and then built off of it. And I designed a collection of 24 fabrics. And I had the little, 8x8 thumbnails of them, and I sent them off to Andover, and I was like, here, what do you think? And they were like, oh,
now we get it.
They knew what to do with it. So yeah, they were, once they saw that, they were like, oh, yeah, let's do this. And so I signed a contract, and here we are.
That's so awesome. That must have been so thrilling when you got the first samples of that fabric and held them in your hands and looked at them.
Oh, it was unreal. It was unreal. I squealed. I still do. Every time I get samples for one of the upcoming collections, I pull them all out and I'm like, it's just so different seeing the little printed square versus having fabric in your hand.
Yeah. And then seeing it put into a project, that takes it to another entirely different level. So I am really glad to hear that you followed that path, and I'm curious to see your other lines too at some point. But your work really brings a lot of joy, and now it's really going to inspire makers in a whole new medium. So that's going to be really fun to get the quilters and the garment makers and all of them involved in your projects too, in addition to the card makers and all the creatives in that part of the crafting world. So we're going to talk about some specific projects soon, but I'm curious to know if there's any advice that you can give to other creators who want to take their art to the next level.
Oh, wow. I would definitely say, don't always take no for an answer. Like I just told you, they weren't an immediate yes. And so I went back and I worked on it and came back, and I persevered and persisted. And I did the same thing with my books. The first book pitch that I did got all the way up the chain with a different company to the very top person, who then just killed it flat. And I was like, well, I could stop here, or I can find someone who believes in what I'm doing. And so I got connected with Page Street, and now we've done 10 books together. So it's just, it's a matter of not giving up on yourself, even when it seems like someone else doesn't believe in your vision or your talent. Just keep going. And also just don't be afraid to start something, even if you're not sure if you can do it. Like what you were talking about, things that your husband taught you to do that were never on your list of possibilities, just step out there and try, because you will amaze yourself what you can do.
Yep. And then your mantra, practice makes progress. Don't expect
Yes.
that you're going to be perfect right off, but keep going at it. That is really good advice that I'm sure will resonate with lots of people who are watching. So your joyful and approachable style is really evident in Bloom and Sew. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired this line, and maybe show us some things you've made using it?
Oh, I would love to. So basically, the challenge that was in the surface design class was that you were supposed to create a hero image where you put flowers into an unusual container. And that was sort of the prompt that we were given. And so because I wanted to combine my love for quilting and sewing with my love for drawing, I decided to use a spool of thread as my container. So my hero image is actually the one that's on the pillow panel right here. So I drew the spool, and then I used some of my classic favorite floral illustrations coming out of it. So that was sort of the building block that everything else came out of. So some of the other patterns, like I pulled the daisy out, and so I have the pink daisies, and I also have a green daisy fabric and a red daisy fabric that go with it. Then I pulled out the idea of the spools of thread. So some of the fabric is spools. Some of the fabric of one of the blenders is just like loops that are to represent like looping thread. So all of it kind of comes somehow out of this image so that everything coordinates together. And it's that idea, the name says it all, it's Bloom and Sew. And then, everything is built around either the flowers, the spools of thread, or both together.
That's awesome.
So,
and
projects.
Everything really does go well together. We can talk about those in just a minute. When I first saw Bloom and Sew, I knew it was going to be really great for some of our patterns, because the colors are really fresh, the pinks, the teals, the yellows, and I really love the sketchiness of them. They look like they're handmade. So I'm curious to know if you have any favorite prints in the collection.
I do. One of my favorites is sort of the main floral print, which I'm not sure how well you can see it here, but it's got the flowers, the bigger flowers and the little daisies, and then the tiny flowers and the vines. I just think this one is so much fun. Love the pink daisies. I always put daisies in my collections because they're my mom's favorite, so that's my little gift to her. And then I am a sucker for polka dots. So the dark pink polka dot is, I think I've used more of that than anything else.
Those are some of my favorites too, and I really had fun sewing with them. The thing that I especially liked about the polka dots is that they're not in straight rows. They're kind of random on there, so that really made them so much easier to cut and not worry about everything being aligned. So thank you for that. Can you tell us a little bit, or actually you've told us quite a bit about the panel, I think, already. Do you have any projects that you made that you can show us using that one?
Yes, so the panel, I've got the two pillows right here, and you can see they're so simple to do. My goal with the panel was to make it really accessible, even for someone who had never sewn before, or for someone who is the little kid like me learning how to sew from mom. And so all you do is you just cut out that part of the panel, and then you pick your favorite backing. And so for this one, I picked a matching, the pink daisies. And for this one, I went with the spools of thread. And you can just choose whatever you like. And you're just going to cut that square the same size. And it can be as simple as just stitching all the way around the edge, leaving that hole to turn it, stuff it, hand stitch it shut, and you have a pillow in like 15 minutes. You can also take it to the next level if you're someone with a little more experience, and you can add some batting behind the front, and you can quilt it in any way that you like. You can do anything to personalize it that you want. You can add pom-poms around the edge. You can add binding, like you were saying, if you want to finish it that way. But just the idea, you've got the pillows, you've got the table runner, which I have here. And you can also, of course, add other fabric on the sides. Like you could do sashing, like a border, and make this bigger, longer, wider, anything you want it to do with it, and the little pouch fronts. So you can use them to make these projects. Or I know you, Annie, liked to cut up the panel, which I was so excited to see, because you can use these as applique. I have right here, I have a denim jacket where I took the little illustration off of the table runner piece, actually, and I put it on my denim jacket. So you don't have to make these specific projects, or you can, but you can use that panel in any way that you like.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I will show some of the ways I used it in a minute. But don't you also have free patterns for all of those things on your website?
I do. So you can go on amylattacreations.com, and there's a page for Bloom and Sew, and there's specifically instructions for each one of the projects on the panel. And then I also have some other free patterns that I'm offering for projects that you can do using the collection.
I think you have a little zippered pouch and some things like that as well, don't you?
I do, yes. So I have a little pouch here. I have this is actually a project that's in my upcoming book that we can talk about, but this is a little hat that I made with the embellishment on it. I have the quilt behind me that I made with it. There's that one is from the book as well. This I'm not sure, it's not quite big enough to be a table runner. I guess it's a table topper, but that is a free pattern that's on the website that you can download. But I just had so much fun creating all different kinds of things with the fabric.
Yeah, and tell us more about your upcoming book, because I think people are going to enjoy hearing about it.
I would love to. So I mentioned that we've done 10 books with Page 3 Publishing, and up until now, they've all been about hand lettering or doodles. I've got Doodle Fantasy Worlds, Doodle all the animals, Doodle everything. But they approached me and said, someone told us that you know how to quilt. Is that true? Because we've been looking for someone to write a quilting book. And I just could not believe that they wanted to do that. And I was like, absolutely, pick me, pick me. And so my goal with the book, it's called Quilting for Everyone. And it focuses on using pre-cuts. You use other things as well for backing, of course, and binding, but it focuses on pre-cuts. And it's designed for all levels of quilters. But I really had in mind folks who were just starting out. There's a whole intro section where I talk about the tools that you need and what they do and how to use them. Because like I told you when we were chatting before the live stream, Annie, when I started quilting, I was terrified because I thought I had to use scissors and cut out all these little tiny squares, and I knew that was going to be a hot mess. So it just changed my world when I was introduced to a rotary cutter and a quilting ruler. So it's introducing people to those tools and techniques, defining what is quilting, the act of quilting. There's the piecing, and then there's the quilting, and there's the finishing. And I think sometimes those of us who are kind of in this world throw that terminology around like everybody knows it, and they don't. So I wanted to take the time to really explain those things. And the projects, I do have quilt patterns in the book, but some of the projects are also really quick and small and easy, like this little hat that you can make very quickly, because I know when I was starting out, I was terrified to just jump in and make a giant quilt. I was like, oh, I am not ready for that. So I have table toppers. I have things that you can use as wall hangings. I have little pouches, a tote bag. The denim jacket that I showed you has a block on the back. Just simple things that you can do, pillows, stuff that you can do in an afternoon instead of weeks or months.
That is such a fabulous idea. And I would think that anybody out there who has maybe daughters or granddaughters or grandsons too that are interested in sewing, a book like that full of projects and maybe a pile of your fabric would be a great gift to set them off on a whole, lifetime of enjoyment, because I think all of us who have learned to sew, it's not something we're going to set aside and forget. It's something we're going to enjoy doing for the rest of our lives. And in many cases, when you get to my age, I think it's what's keeping a lot of us going, you know. It's so exciting to get up every day and have something new to create and make and people we love to give it to. So that's really exciting. So when is the book going to be available and how can they find it?
I love that question. It's available August 19th, so next month. And it's already available for pre-order through certain retailers. You can go to Amazon, you can go to barnesandnoble.com, booksamillion.com, and all of those places you can place a pre-order. And they have a price guarantee, at least I know Amazon does, where if you purchase it, they'll give it, like if the price fluctuates, you always will get it at the lowest price, no matter when you pre-order. And then it'll show up on your doorstep on August 19th. And then there are other places. I know Fat Quarter Shop is carrying it, and a couple of other online retailers where they don't have pre-orders open. Missouri Star Quilt Company is going to carry it. So if you wait until the 19th, those places, if you want to support them, they're going to be carrying the book as well.
Great. And you had mentioned that a lot of the projects use pre-cuts. So are all of these fabrics also available in jelly rolls and charm packs and all those things too?
Oh, yes. And by the way, the book doesn't just feature Bloom and Sew, although a lot of these projects that we're looking at today are, but it features other fabrics as well. You can use any fabrics you like. But yes, the Bloom and Sew collection is going to be available in all the standard pre-cuts.
That's great. All right. Well, I thought it would be fun to show you some of the things that we made using Bloom and Sew. So I know that when the fabric arrived, we were working on new patterns for what is this, spring release. So of course we wanted to make some of our newest patterns using it. And we felt like the variety of fabrics was really perfect for our two little totes patterns. And the florals really give these totes such an artsy feel. So I'm going to start with this small one. So for this one, we used, because it's the smaller one, we used the Tiny Blooms print, which is the really small flowers. And the colorway we picked was emerald. And then we used the larger tulip trios for the lining. So actually, I have a little piece left over right here. So we've got the tulip trios on the lining and the tiny, what were they called? My mind went blank. Tiny blooms,
I think.
For the main one. All right. So to add some interest on the outside, though, instead of using the tiny blooms for the pockets, we just turned the lining side out and put the larger floral on the outside for the pockets, which gives it a little bit more interest. And then we used two different coordinating prints for the bag. It only calls for one, but we always like to bring in more fabrics if we can. So we used the salmon loopy threads print for the handles, the base facings, and all the bindings. And I like a print like that for those because it kind of reads as a solid. And it always also looks kind of like it's hand-drawn. And then for the inside, we used the little pink and white dots that you did. Lots of dots, I think that one's called. So we did that for the inner pocket. I always forget. I'm looking at you on the screen, but I have to turn to the camera. So we did that for the inside. And like I said earlier, I really love that the dots are kind of random on there because it makes it so much easier to not have to worry about lining things up exactly. So that's
it does. I can never get dots straight.
Yep. And then for our zipper, we used our new coral color, which goes perfectly with this line. So that was exciting to see. And then on the medium bag, we used a more medium scaled print called Daisy Days for the main fabric. And we did the spools. Do I have a sample? Yeah, so here. So then we did the spools and blooms for the lining on that. And this colorway is called Sky. And we took the tiny blooms that we'd used on that one and used the raspberry colorway for the handles, the base facing, the bindings, and the inner, oh, no, not the inner pocket and divider. On the inner pocket and divider, we brought in an even larger pink floral, just to give some extra interest in there. And on here, so on the front pocket, we just took the lining side and used it for the combination slip zip pocket. But on the back pocket, we took part of the panel and brought it in. And I am really thrilled with how this turned out. I got to get that up closer to the camera. So, no, right here is fine.
I love that.
All right, so I dropped my feed dogs on this, and I hadn't done free motion quilting in a long time, so this was a good practice session for me. But I did free motion quilting around the spool and all the flowers, and that really made them pop. And I didn't like how the background looked kind of wrinkly after I did so much quilting around those. So then I drew some diagonal lines across each block in both directions and added some cross hatch quilting there. So I stopped it when it got to the flowers and the spool on each thing, so that I didn't go over those. But I really think that makes that center section pop, and that really adds a special touch to the tote.
I love that so much.
We had some fabric left over, so I'm going to start with this one. So this was made with leftovers from the two little totes. So we made some sewing room organizers, because I just feel like this happy line makes organizing feel like you're playing. So for this end control, we used the tiny blooms for the outside, and then it has the tulip trio on the inside. And we brought in a whole bunch of different stuff. So on the front panel, front pocket, we used part of the panel, which is a word that says bloom, and we went around that with the cream blooming bouquet, and I just added strips on each side to make it the height and width that I needed. I added a little bit because I knew I was going to want to quilt that, so I made it a little bit larger than the finished pocket needed to be, and after I quilted it, then I trimmed it to the size that I needed. So the blooming back bouquet fabric I also used for the back pocket, and I quilted each of those just using a crosshatch design, and I made my lines about a ½ inch apart. One thing, if I had it to do over, I would have put a little bit more time into this. When I quilted over the words, they kind of disappeared into the background and makes them a little bit harder to read. So I'd probably do something more like I did on the spools pocket on this tote, and go along the words and then just do something in the background if I had that to do over. But live and learn. You guys can learn from what I did. And then I used, again, part of the panel and the same type of quilting on a pocket on the end. I had to add some strips of blooming bouquet on the sides to make it fit the size that I needed, but that was easy to do. I just added strips, quilted it, and then trimmed it down. And for the zippered pocket, I felt bad making it just be plain, but I took some of the main fabric and then I just did a little patchwork border at the top. So I just cut pieces of fabric 1½ inch square, sewed them together to make a border. I put some fusible on the back to make it really sturdy, and then I attach the strip just like we normally do for a border. I don't know that I've ever done a patchwork border before, so that was really fun to do. And then after I got it on there, I just quilted X's across each of the blocks to give them some interest. And then on the inside, we did the cream blooming bouquet for the fronts of the dividers and the stabilizer sleeve, and we did the pink dot that we had used for our coordinate for the backs of those. I really love these little dividers because they fall flat against the sides, but they can expand to hold bulky items like my eyeglasses case. I can put my bottle of water in there, and they're not going to tip over, and if I carry it from room to room, everything's going to stay in place. So this little caddy, I think, could be great for any room of the house. You could put craft supplies in there, beauty supplies in there, give this to a little girl for her room. So many ways that you could use this little caddy. Then we also did our larger big sister to that one. This one is called Catch-All Caddy, and we did that one again with the Daisy Days and the spools and blooms that were left over. So I did a mint dancing vines in mint for the coordinate. I also did that on the linings of the inner dividers. And then I used the blooming bouquet in the ballet pink for the fronts of those I did the mint for the stabilizer sleeve, but I really like how the pinks and the greens and the blues in this line just all go together so well. And on the front, I again used part of the panel. This time I picked the part that said "Sewing Mends the Soul." I thought that was so true and also so perfect for a caddy to organize your sewing room. And on this one, I wanted to feature as many fabrics as I could, so I just cut a bunch of squares of fabric to make a patchwork border that went around the piece. And it turned out that 4 rows of 1 1/4 inch finished size blocks were exactly the size to fit this. So I just added 2 short rows on each side of this and then full rows on the top and bottom. And I used my walking foot to stitch in the ditch around the center block and along each of the squares. And then I did do some free motion stitching along the letters of the quote, because I think that makes that show up so much better than stitching through it. And for the other pockets, I just did a variety of leftover fabrics from all of the different lines. So I didn't have, I think we got, I can't remember, 1 yard of each fabric, and by the time I got done, this is all that I had left over of the quilted fabric, so not very much. So we put it all to good use, and I'm sure I'll figure out some way to use those on something else. I've already got some pockets cut out for another project that we're working on for a new pattern that's coming out in the fall, and we did again part of the panel on that. So make yourself a caddy. They're functional, they're sturdy, they're cheerful, just like the fabric.
I love those so much, Annie. They are adorable. And you have no idea how exciting it is for me, because the only things I've seen made with this collection so far are the things I made. So to see what you and your creativity did with it, I don't even have words right now.
That's awesome. Well, it's got to be really fun to see other people. It's kind of the way I feel when people take my patterns and make them into so many things. So your fabric, our patterns, you know, we're hopefully going to bring a lot of inspiration to lots of people to give them some ideas to do. I had a whole lot of other ideas of things I wanted to do. I really wanted to take all of the fabrics and make a big patchwork panel to make a bag. I just ran out of time, but I wanted to mention this. We have a friend from Australia who we distribute patterns for. Her name is Lynn Wilson. Her company is Lynn Wilson Designs, and she has several patterns that use 2.5 inch strips to make patchwork patterns. So this is her everyday tote pattern, and then I'm just going to grab this from back here. This is a pattern called Snuggle Pillow, and she gives you, start with 2.5 inch pre-cut strips, and you make different blocks that you put together, and then you can make this pillow or you can make this tote. And I think that if you just took those techniques from Lynn's pattern and made a panel to the size that you need for your particular bag, that would make it super quick and easy, and you wouldn't have to do all the thinking from scratch. So be sure and check those patterns out. You can just find them on our website. Hang on. Just go to patterns up at the top, and down in the list you'll find a whole section of Lynn Wilson Designs patterns. And the direct links for the Snuggle Pillow and Everyday Tote will be in the description below. So check those out. I could also see using these for coordinated sets for the sewing room. So in addition to the caddies, you could do machine covers, you could do tool holders, other kinds of organizers. The sewing theme really lends itself well to that. And one thing that I had wanted to do, and again ran out of time, but to take our undercover pattern to make a sewing machine cover. And this is the only part of the, well, I guess not quite the only, but this big block I think could go perfectly on there, and then add some patchwork around it. So it wouldn't work as well on the front pocket because we've got a zipper in there and that's shorter. But on the back, and usually in any sewing room you're going to see it from all sides, or you just put it on the other way around. But that would fit really well on there. Or like you did, make it into a little small wall hanging to hang in your sewing room. So lots of ways to do that. And then beyond those, I think quilters are really going to love the florals, the textures for the borders and blocks. Garment sewists, I can really imagine this tiny blooms on a summer skirt, or really any of these on a little girl's dress. There's just lots and lots of ways that they can be used.
Yeah, I actually made a quilted coat. I had seen some at Quilt Market and of course came home and thought I need to make myself one of those. So I did this jacket out of it, and it was so fun, and it was easier than I thought it was going to be. But basically all I did was is it rail fence or fence rail? I can never remember.
Rail fence.
But it's Yes, okay, rail fence. So where you take the 2.5-inch strips and you sew them together 3 at a time, and then you just cut them into the blocks. And so I just made like a big long rectangle of that and quilted it. And then I used that and cut my jacket pattern. I just found a pattern for a coat. It wasn't necessarily a quilted coat, but I found it on Pinterest and bought it. And then I just cut the pieces out of what I had quilted and then sewed it together.
So did you quilt it with quilt batting in between and a lining? And then did you
Yes.
add a lining, or was that the lining then of the bag or the coat?
So I did the ribbons and the batting and quilted that. And then what they have you do for this particular jacket pattern is you basically make 2 jackets. So like you make the outer jacket and you make the inner jacket, and you put the inner one inside, and then you use the binding all around it to join it together.
Wow, that's really cute. Can you share the name of that pattern? Do you remember it?
I don't remember what it was, but I can
Okay.
get the name to you later if you have a place that you can share that. Like
Yeah,
you could put it in your
I could
newsletter
let
or
people
something.
know next week or whatever,
Mhm.
or next month when we gather, because that's really cute. I love that, and that sounds like a great way to do it, to just put them together and bind it. I love binding, so
Yes, it's so much
uh,
easier than you think.
yeah, I love that. So one of the things that I found as I was working on these projects again was your hand lettering. I thought that just really made it special, and I know that it's something that your followers have come to love, so it's really nice for them that it's now on fabric. I also love that you were really willing to share your techniques with us through your blog, your YouTube channel, your books, and more. I spent a lot of time watching some of your videos on doing the lettering, and I think other people would like to know that that's available. But for people who want to add their own lettering to a fabric project, like a personalized bag or a tag, where would you recommend that they start?
Well, one of the ways that I use most often is fabric markers. And I personally really like the Missouri Star Quilt Company fabric markers. I've tried all kinds of different brands, but those have the least bleed. And they, you don't have to heat set them or anything. They just work really, really nicely. And they come, it's a set of 2 black ones. Unfortunately, they only do come in black, but you have a bigger one and a smaller one that you can use. And so what I do is I just take like a heat erase pen or a pencil or whatever will show up on my fabric, and I kind of sketch out the positioning of my letters and words just to make sure I have it where I want it. And then I trace it with fabric marker. And I've done that. I've put it on like a 10-inch square of a neutral color or something like that. And then I put something around it and create a pillow front that way. We also did a table runner where I had like 3 of those 10-inch squares that I had lettered on with phrases about giving thanks and things it was for Thanksgiving, and then put patchwork around them and joined them together to make a table runner. So fabric marker is a great way to do that. It's also perfect for quilt labels. If you want to letter something, you know, this is to so and so from mom or from grandma, and put that on the back, I would recommend the fabric marker. Some other things that you can do if you like to do hand embroidery, you can do the same kind of thing, but instead of tracing it with fabric marker, you can embroider it instead using your favorite stitches. You could also, of course, embroider any of the panel things as well. You can embroider over my hand lettering instead of doing it yourself if you like. Another option is you can let your machine do it by using the free motion quilting, like what you were talking about when you quilted around the lettering that was on the panels. You can also do that with your own lettering. You can sketch things on there either with heat erase pen or chalk, and then lower your feed dogs and you can let the machine embroider it. That definitely is a learned skill. I can't say that I'm awesome at that. And so that's going to be one of those practice makes progress kind of situations, but it is definitely doable. And then last but not least, you can applique other hand lettering on it. So like we were talking about earlier, you can take lettering that's on fabric or something that you've lettered elsewhere and applique it onto your projects.
Well, those are all such good ideas. And as I said, I really enjoyed incorporating the words and quotes into our projects. I think they just take it up a notch and give it really a personal touch. So thank you for making that so simple and easy.
Of course, I love the way that looks on your projects.
So would you ever recommend, if someone's not really happy with how their hand lettering and stuff looks, would you recommend that they get a stencil or a template to make them feel a little more confidence in it?
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer in using whatever resources you can find. So if you feel more comfortable starting out with a stencil, or I know I offer a lot of traceables and printables for free on my website. So you could print something out that someone else has lettered, and you, especially if you have a light box, you can put that on there and then put your fabric on top and you can trace over what someone else has done. Or like you said, a stencil, anything, just if you can find it, you can use it. I think it's starting is the best place. You know, that's the best thing you can do is just find something that feels doable for you and give it a try.
Well, and something that I have done in the past too, I really like words on quilts. And I've done ones where I've applicated, but in most of those cases, I just went to my computer and found either a font that had a lot of, width to the letters, or if I wanted something finer for embroidery, a finer font, but I sized it, and that way I could play with, I knew how much depth I need or width I needed. I could play with placing the words and then just trace over them. Sometimes I just used a Pigma pen, other times I traced it and then embroidered it like with a chain stitch, and it's really a nice way to add yourself to the projects that you make.
Absolutely. That's how I got started in all of this was that there was a quilt company that asked me to teach their folks how to hand letter quilt labels because they wanted that personal touch. And so that way the person that you gift it to has this little bit of you on the quilt besides the quilt that you made, but it has your handwriting and that little special message. And so of course, in the end, I said, well, I'm going to teach you to letter. You have to teach me to quilt. And so that's where it all started.
Wow, that's such a great story. I love hearing that. And I know one of my really prized possessions are some of the recipes that my mom wrote out that I have in her handwriting.
Yes.
It's just adds a lot of specialness to it. And I need to remember to do that. I think we're so tied into typing everything and doing everything on the computer and printing it out that I got a letter the other day from my grandson who's in first grade, and his mom was always, she loved letters, and so he writes me letters, and I'm not doing as good at writing him back as I need to. But it's so fun to see how a first grader, how nice he writes, and they must be teaching him cursive because he wrote his name at the end. But it's like, I'm going to make a special box to put all these in because they're just going to be so special for him when he grows up and gets to go back and look at all the things that he made. So thank you so much for sharing all your tips. I think a lot of people are going to be really inspired to add their own message to their next make and also to create using Bloom and Sew. So before we let you go, where can people find your work and stay connected with you?
So I have a website, amylattacreations.com, and that's sort of the home base for everything that you might be looking for. I have pages on there that are dedicated to my books, pages that are dedicated to my fabric collections, pages that are dedicated to holiday projects, pages that are about hand lettering and that have the free printables and all of those things. So if you head to amylattacreations.com, that's sort of the hub, and then you can find from there the specific things that you're looking for. I'm also on social media pretty much everywhere at Amy Latta Creations. So I'm active on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Pinterest all the time. I also do have a Facebook group which is called Amy Latta and Friends. And it is a private group because you'd be surprised all the different bots and things that try to join in if you make it a public one. But all you have to do to get in is you just request to join, and it asks you what your favorite type of crafting is. And as long as you have an answer that makes sense and seems like a person wrote it, you're in. But that is called Amy Latta and Friends on Facebook. And we like to do a little weekly share thread where I'll ask people to drop comments in the show and tell and just show us what they've been working on. It could be a project that they've made using one of my patterns, or it could be literally anything at all. If you're baking something, if you planted a garden and your carrots are ready, show us, because that's creativity too. And then I also have, so for Bloom and Sew specifically, I have amylattacreations.com/Bloom and Sew, and you can see all the information, and that's the free patterns for the different, the panel projects, as well as some of the projects that we showed today. And I have, what was the other thing? I know I sent you another link. Oh, for the book. There's a
Free
book
patterns.
for, oh, and the patterns. Yes, yes, yes. So I have, I gathered together all of the free quilting patterns that I have available on my website. So that's beyond just the ones where I used Bloom and Sew, but it's just all the free patterns that I have for quilts, table runners, pouches, everything you can imagine. And so you can grab that. The link is there on the screen as well, and just see all the free patterns that you can download.
That's awesome. And for people who have kids home from school or grandkids spending time with them this summer, there's a lot of projects on there that you can do with kids that are quick and simple and look like lots of fun to do. So, and practice pages for all the letters of the alphabet if you want to teach your kid to do calligraphy or to do modern calligraphy this summer. So lots of fun things to do. To share it with others as well. So before we go say goodbye, let's see if our viewers have any questions. Okay, so just a couple of them. The first one is, when will the fabric line be available?
Great question. So it ships to quilt stores this month in July. I don't know exactly when in July. That's sort of a mystery. This is my first collection, so I'm not sure exactly how that works. And I asked the folks at Andover, and I'm waiting for the response back to see exactly when, but I think it could be anytime this month. But you can go into your local quilt store and ask them if they have it yet, if they've ordered it, and when it's coming in. But it should be out and available this month.
Nice, that's awesome. And then the other question is, what again was the name of the fabric lettering pins that you recommend?
Oh, those are the Missouri Star Quilt Company fabric markers.
Great. And I assume they come in a set of a variety of colors?
Yeah, they're a set of two. It's a pair of them. They're both black. There's a big one and a little one, and it's from Missouri Star Quilt Company fabric markers. Just make sure they're the ones that say that they're permanent, because they also do have like the washout ones for other purposes, but for lettering purposes, we want it to stay.
Something that's going to last. Awesome. Sounds great. Well, thank you again, Amy, for sharing your inspiration with us and walking us through how you designed and came up with this beautiful new line. It's been really a joy to have you here with us today. And I'm going to really look forward to seeing your next lines too. And I hope to see you again in person. Will you be in Houston again this fall?
I will, yes. So I've got Sunny Honey is behind me. That's the one that's coming out in September. And that is bees and sunflowers. So that one I'm really excited for you to see and play with. It's really fun. And I have a patriotic one coming. So we'll talk at Quilt Market. But yes, I will be there in Houston in October.
Sounds great. Will you have a new line to release then? I assume these have already been released if you've already got the fabric there.
Yes, so these are my samples. So this one was in, I forget which catalog, but it's in the catalog already. And then the most recent catalog was Oh Say Can You Sew, the patriotic one. And then I have another one that's going to be in the August catalog, and that'll be what I'm sharing at market.
Sounds great. So that's a surprise. We can't wait to see that. All right. Well, thank you again for joining us, and I will look forward to seeing you soon.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Annie.
Bye-bye. All right, I gotta have another drink. I am so thirsty today. It's only supposed to be up to 95 here today, but I think it's close to that back here in this room, so it's a warm one. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed meeting Amy and seeing Bloom and Sew, and remember that we would really love to see what all of you make using this beautiful line, or using any of Amy's techniques, or really any of our patterns and products. So be sure to share photos of your finished projects with us, and you do that just by entering our monthly photo contest. And the good news is you can win up to $50, and we award several prizes each month. You can get all the details at our website by just going to Community on the top menu bar and then clicking on the monthly photo contest link that's on the left side of the screen. As always, please ask for these products at your favorite local quilt shop. We all know these shops are such an important part of our sewing and quilting communities, and it is up to all of us to keep them strong and vibrant. And again, if they don't have these products, they can certainly get them. Fabrics from Andover, ByAnnie patterns and supplies from their favorite distributor, or directly from us. We're always happy to set up wholesale accounts for qualified shops, so just ask them to contact us for more information. Let's move on now to our monthly SewPink segment. So this year we are featuring different cancers each month and sharing information and projects that we've made. And July is Sarcoma and Bone Cancer Awareness Month, so we're going to talk a little bit about what it is, some risk factors, treatment, and more. And I have to say, this one really hits close to home for me, as we lost my brother-in-law Pete to Ewing sarcoma 25 years ago. And I recently learned that Sweet Josie, who designed this Delightful Dreams fabric that you guys may remember, we used it to make so many fun projects. She also died of that very same disease. So we featured Josie and her fabric on Live with Annie in season 4, which was episode 24. We showcased all these projects that we made using her just delightful fabric. It's really named well. So these bright, colorful fabrics were so cheerful, and they were just perfect for lots of fun little projects. So QT Fabrics donated all the proceeds from the sale of Delightful Dreams to Quilts for Kids to help support kids like Josie. And thanks to all of you, they have already raised over $75,000. So if you would like to continue to support the cause, be sure to ask for Delightful Dreams at your local quilt shop, and it should be hitting stores right about now. Also, take some time to rewatch that episode of Live with Annie to learn more about Quilts for Kids and all of their really worthwhile endeavors. And if you are a shop owner, Tiffany at QT tells me that they still have a good amount of inventory available of Delightful Dreams, so you can still buy the fabric and help promote the cause. And she says the fabric would ship to you within just days from the warehouse. So I really think this is such a fun line, and there's so many cute projects you could make with it. So let's talk a little bit about sarcoma and bone cancer. I have to admit, I didn't really know what sarcoma was. So sarcoma is a type of cancer that starts in the body's connective tissues. So those are things like muscles, fat, blood vessels, and bones. And while sarcomas make up less than 1% of adult cancers, they are more common in younger people, especially during growth spurts. And sarcoma can be really hard to detect early. It often starts as just a painless lump or swelling, or as a dull, persistent pain in a bone or joint. And these symptoms can easily be mistaken for injuries, growing pains, or just harmless cysts. But if a lump keeps growing or the pain doesn't go away, especially if it's worse at night, it's worth getting checked by a doctor, because many sarcomas are aggressive, meaning they can grow and spread really quickly. So catching them early can make a really big difference in treatment outcomes. While sarcoma is most often diagnosed in children and adolescents, it can affect anyone regardless of age, background, or lifestyle. So my brother-in-law was, I believe, in his 40s when he developed Ewing sarcoma, which is usually something that hits children. So it was not at all common for that, but it took him. And because these cancers are rare, they are sometimes overlooked in routine exams. So raising awareness really helps patients, families, and even doctors recognize the signs sooner. So by taking the time to learn about sarcoma and share information or show support, you are really helping bring much needed attention to this overlooked cause. So whether it's by wearing yellow in July, making something by hand, or simply talking about it, your voice matters. So let's work together to shine a light on sarcoma and support those that are fighting these tough battles every day. So the color for sarcoma and bone cancer is yellow. So to help build awareness this month, I got a little bit carried away and I made another in control. I guess I was a glutton for punishment, and I used a variety of yellow fabrics from Moda's Bella Solids line. So we used saffron, yellow, 30s yellow, and then a white bleached. And then we also used our buttercream zipper on here. So don't forget, we have prepared a color chart that shows the solid fabrics from 16 different manufacturers if you want to make a project to help spread awareness too. And you can find all those links to it on our blog or by going to the SewPink page at ByAnnie.com. So as we were discussing what to make for this month's project, I was trying to figure out how to represent bones and connective tissue. And I started by looking for patchwork patterns for bones, but I really wasn't having much luck with that. But I've often said that I really love the structure that binding gives a project. To me, it's like a skeleton that gives it good bones to make it stand up. So when in control with its strong, sturdy bones just seemed like the perfect choice. Then I want it to represent sarcoma, which again is cancer of the connective tissue. So I thought, well, if I do some patchwork using blocks that connect, that should work. So I found this little kaleidoscope block and thought, well, that would be perfect. And after looking at the pattern, I realized that 2-inch finished blocks would fit the pieces just perfectly. So I loaded my EQ software, which is electric quilt software, and I started designing. And then I printed a couple of patterns out in a couple of different designs, and I started sewing. So I started first with this section that became the back of the bag. So I made one block using each one of the colors of yellow, and I did a white background for all of them. On this side, I decided to create more of a secondary design. So I used the darker yellow on the outer corners. I used the brighter yellow to make kind of a circle inside, and then the lighter yellow in the middle. It's always so interesting to me how just rearranging the colors can give you so many different effects. And I think this would be a really fun pattern to play with brighter and bolder fabrics that may be different colors so they show up. Those designs show up a little bit better. To make those circular designs more predominant on this, I added a plain strip between the two blocks, and then I added plain strips on the outside to get the width that I needed. And I was working on this in the wee hours, which should surprise no one. So I made some mistakes in rearranging the colors, so I had some extra reject blocks that worked perfectly for the zippered pocket on the other end. But I have to say, by that point, I was really sick of kaleidoscope blocks. But I didn't think I wanted to put just a plain block on the other end, so I went to Sewfinity's website and downloaded their awareness ribbon, and I put a yellow ribbon on the end of that for the slip pocket on the other end. This project, I have to say, took way longer than I expected that it would, which is kind of the story of my life, but I am really happy with how it turned out, and I really think it's a perfect way to honor both Pete and Josie and all of those who are affected by sarcoma and bone cancer, and I will try not to cry. So an In Control or similar bag would be really great for anyone who's undergoing treatment for any type of cancer. They could use it to carry their tech gear, their snacks, or a craft project to treatments, or they would make a really beautiful gift for a caregiver or others to help spread awareness. I hope you enjoyed learning about how we made this fun and functional caddy, and hope that you will be inspired too to make something special to spread awareness of sarcoma and bone cancer. Before we close, I want to share a couple of important announcements. First, we are really excited to be a gold sponsor again this year for the annual Cherrywood contest. And I'm really excited about this year's theme, which is story time. So we've got a video that we're going to play, and I'm going to let Cherrywood tell you more about it. I'm Annie with ByAnnie.com. We are super excited to be returning as a gold sponsor for the 2026 Cherrywood Challenge Storytime. I have so many precious memories of times shared with my children and now my grandchildren reading together. We all love Storytime. We want to help you create lasting memories and enduring pieces of art with our special Cherrywood Challenge cut of Soft and Stable. You'll love the dimension it gives applique and quilting and the stability it provides for embroidery and other embellishments. We look forward to seeing your submissions and wish you all happy stitching.
Hello. When my daughter Callie was younger, we would read Kiss the Cow. Her eyes sparkled as I read, "Ah," said Annalisa, "imagine kissing a cow." Those moments wove love into our story. Don't you want your quilts to hold stories like that? Don't let your story stay untold. Start the Storytime Challenge now at sweethomequilting.com.
Ready? Yeah. Wow. That was really fun to watch. I am so excited about this year's challenge. I'm already thinking of ideas of what to make using these gorgeous fabrics. I was talking to my son this morning and I said, "So what was one of your favorite books growing up?" And he mentioned The Spooky Old Tree, which was a definite favorite that I loved reading to my kids and also to my grandkids. So Liam and I may have to make a spooky old tree using this, because I don't know if you noticed, but kids can enter and they're helpers. So we're going to see what we can do. And we can't wait to see what you make too. So get those creative juices flowing. We also want to remind you that our friends at Shop Hop Inc. have organized some really great shop hops for the summer. So the All Iowa and All Michigan shop hops, which started in June, will continue throughout the month of July. And the Mid-Atlantic shop hop started July 1st, yesterday, and it will run all the way until the end of August. So if you're planning summer road trips, be sure to stop in and visit a few new local quilt shops along the way. And many of the shops participating in the shop hops are displaying ByAnnie trunk shows, so you can see ByAnnie models up close and personal. And we've put up all the links so you can get all the details. Thank you again to everyone who joined us today. We are going to be back on Wednesday, August 6th at 2 p.m. Mountain Time with what is sure to be a super fun episode of Live with Annie. We are going to be joined by the fabulous Kim Greenfeld, who is going to share some ideas for putting the fun in fundraising. We are really looking forward to having Kim here in person again and getting the chance to catch up with her. She is always so much fun. Kim has been super busy making lots of projects to share, so you won't want to miss it. Mark your calendars now, and until then, happy stitching!